Hello and welcome back to another video of IGCSE Biology definitions. This is slightly different because it's going to be quiz mode. I have written down the definitions and we'll try to solve them, and you'll try to solve them on your own as well before I answer them. Let's get started. Okay, unit 14, coordination and response. Consists of brain and spinal cord. So this is going to be our CNS, the central nervous system. You know our nervous system is divided into two parts, central nervous system, and which is known as CNS, and PNS. This is CNS. Consists of nerves outside brain and spinal cord. That is PNS, peripheral nervous system. Make sure that you memorize all of these these definitions for biology. Now, what is the means of automatically and rapidly integrating and coordinating stimuli, the responses of effectors, muscles, and glands? So that would be a reflex action, where the stimuli causes an automatic response and you don't think and make a decision. That is called a reflex action. One example of reflex action is when you automatically blink your eye when something comes near your eye and you blink it, right? That's a reflex action. You don't think it, it just happens automatically. Okay, moving on. A junction between two neurons, that is a synapse. It ensures that impulses travel in one direction only. Synapse. Next. Dash is a chemical substance produced by a gland and carried by the blood, which alters the activity of one or more specific target organs. So it's a chemical substance. It's going to be a hormone. A hormone, for example, we can say insulin. Insulin is produced by a gland, pancreas, and it is carried by the blood. Insulin is transferred to the blood, and it alters the activity of one or more specific target organs. Right, it affects the activity. Insulin, we have FSH, LH, FSH and LH, which are produced by, and they are carried by the blood to our ovaries, and they affect the production of ova, right? So there are so many other hormones as well. Then this is a hormone which is secreted in fight or flight situation. That is an adrenaline. There's something called adrenaline rush. People feel that when they are in scary situations or fight or flight situations or thrilling situations. Next, maintenance of a constant internal environment. That is going to be homeostasis. Homeostasis makes sure, our body is sensitive. Everything has to be maintained within small ranges, like the temperature. If the temperature increases too much, it can cause denaturation of proteins. If the temperature is too low, the reactions it's going to cause imbalance. The reactions may not occur. So how does homeostasis occur with temperature? For example, if the temperature is very high in our body, we start sweating and we lose that heat energy. Our veins dilate, vasodilation, to get rid of the heat, so the temperature remains around 37 degrees Celsius in a normal human body. Okay, next we're going to talk about a response in which parts of the plant grow toward or away from light source direction. That is going to be, since it's light, it's going to be phototropism, because photo itself means light. Phototropism. So that means if we keep a plant in a box and we keep and we have a hole somewhere, so light can enter, this plant is going to grow in direction of light. That is called phototropism. And then second, response in which parts of plant grow towards or away from gravity is called as gravitropism. So if, for example, if the plant is growing in this direction, this is our plant, and we rotate the plant like this, it's going to grow like this. So that's gravitropism. So this is going away from gravity. Okay, next, drugs. So What is that substance that is which is taken in the body and modifies or affects chemical reactions in the body? That is going to be drugs, obviously. Chapter 16, Reproduction. Is a process resulting in production of genetically identical offspring from one parent. When we're talking about one parent, so this is going to be asexual reproduction. Bacteria, viruses, even some plants undergo asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. Blank is a process involving fusion of nuclei of two gametes to form a zygote. So we have a sperm and the ova, they fuse together to form a zygote. And the production of the offspring that are genetically different from each other. That is going to be sexual reproduction. Fusion of nuclei of gametes. This process is called as fertilization. So fertilization is different from sexual reproduction because just this fusion of nuclei is called as fertilization, but the entire process of forming the zygote and then offspring is the reproduction. So don't make sure that you don't confuse the two. Fusion is fertilization. Next, pollen grains. So this is obviously related to plants. Transfer of pollen grains from anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower. Remember, anther is the male reproductive part of a plant, while a stigma is females, okay, of the same flower or different flower of the same plant. So this is going to be self-pollination. This is how pollination occurs. There's anther and then stigma. I don't know, this drawing is not accurate. The pollen grain from anther goes to the stigma of the same flower. Remember, this drawing is not accurate. All right. Next, this is a transfer of pollen grain. Again, so it's going to be pollination from anther of a flower to stigma of a flower of a different flower of the same species. This is going to be cross-pollination. Remember, cross-pollination produces more variety compared to self-pollination. It increases diversity. Moving on. Blank is an infection that is transmitted through sexual contact. That is going to be an STI, sexually transmitted infection. Blank is a pathogen that causes an STI that could lead to AIDS. Okay, so remember what's a pathogen? It's a disease-causing organism that causes an STI and could lead to AIDS. This is HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. I'll just write HIV here. It's a pathogen. Okay, moving on. Now we'll talk about inheritance. Blank are made up of DNA which contains genetic information in the form of gene. That is going to be our chromosomes. It is made up of DNA. DNA is coiled up and chromosome, and it has some other proteins. This form chromosome contains our genetic information. Dash is a length of DNA that codes for a protein. So remember, DNA, let's say this is a part of our DNA. It has a different different bases, A, T, C, G, which codes for different amino acids, and a part of a DNA that codes for a protein is called a gene. Alternative form of a gene is known as allele. For example, the eye color of a gene for eye color. It could be black, it could be green, it could be blue. There are so many alternative forms of one gene of eye color. So we can say it has different alleles, okay? Next, reduction division, in which the chromosome number is halved from diploid to haploid. That is going to be meiosis. Meiosis is a form of reduction division. Remember, mitosis is also a form of division, but the chromosome number are not halved. A diploid remains diploid. And it's useful for growth and for repair of our cells. It occurs in all cells, while meiosis only occurs in reproductive. Next, transmission of genetic information from generation to generation. This is called as inheritance. In biology, inheritance is transfer of genes from parent to children and onwards. Blank is the genetic makeup of an organism in terms of allele present. This is going to be a genotype. A genotype shows us the genetic makeup in terms of alleles present. For example, it could be BB. Maybe B is capital B would be always dominant. Small letter b is recessive. And there's a lot like it's a chapter that is to be studied in detail, but these represent the genotype, and it shows which genes are present. What for it could be for eye color, could be for our for anything, for color of the fur of an animal, and so on, anything. Next, observable features of an organism. This is called a phenotype. You can see it. For example, we'll say the phenotype is black fur. Black fur would be the phenotype, and the genotype would be BB. This is how it's represented in terms of alleles, okay? Next, having two identical alleles of a particular gene. When alleles are identical, for example, we have BB or we have capital BB. Both of them are homozygous because they both have same type of allele. Note, whenever two homozygous breed, we can make a Punnett square here. Whenever two homozygous breed, the individuals will always be pure breeding. Okay, BB. Pure breeding, that means it's going to be 100% BB. Whereas if it's having two different alleles of a particular gene, those are heterozygous. Heterozygous individuals, when they breed, their offsprings are not pure. So let's look at our example. This is going to be capital as well as small here as well. So this is 25% capital B's, 25% too small. These are recessive, capital is dominant, and 50% mixed. So this is not a pure breeding. Heterozygous individuals do not, their offsprings are not purebred. Next, allele that is expressed if it is present in the genotype. That means it's going to be dominant. So whether our organism is homozygous or heterozygous, this is going to be expressed. For example, let's say B is black fur and small letter b is brown fur. If it is, whether it's homozygous or heterozygous, our offspring will only have black fur because of the presence of this capital B of a dominant allele. Whenever the dominant allele is present, the offspring will take this feature. But an allele that is expressed only if there is no dominant allele of the gene present is called as recessive. If our offspring is to have brown color fur, it must have it should be like this, only if there is no dominant allele. So we don't have the dominant allele of capital B, then only our offspring or our organism will have brown fur. Yeah. Now we can move on to organisms and their environment. Now, what is a transfer of energy from organism to next, beginning with the producer? That is going to be our food chain. For example, if we have a grass eaten by a zebra, which is eaten by a lion. So this is a food chain. What is a network of interconnected food chain? So that means if there's also like a hen feeds on the grass, and hen is eaten by a human. This human is also eaten by a lion. Grass is also eaten by deer. line. There is interconnected food chain. We call this a food web. It has multiple food chains inside one. Now, organism that makes its own organic nutrients, usually using energy from sunlight through photosynthesis, not sunlight, photosynthesis. Obviously, that is going to be a producer. All plants, all green plants, are producers, and basically, producers are like our mediator between sun provides sunlight, and we get food from plants, right? Producers are the first organism that can create their own food, and then the food chain starts from the producer. Then organism that is get its energy by feeding on other organism, that is going to be a consumer. So consumer could are of look here in the food chain. This grass is a producer, and all these are consumers. They consume food. They do not create their own food, and there are different levels of consumers. We have primary, which depend directly on the producer. Then we have secondary, which depend on the primary consumer. Then there's also tertiary and quaternary according to their position in the food chain. Okay, this is primary, this is secondary, and then it can go on and on. Usually doesn't go more than 4. Now, organism that gets its energy by eating plants, that is a herbivore. Animals like deers, like rabbits, these eat plants, so these are herbivores. Animals that eat other animals are known as carnivores. For example, lions. There's also omnivores, which can eat both plants and animals, which are human beings. Next, from dead or waste organic materials, that is going to be a decomposer. One example is worms, also crows and vultures. These are decomposers, and they help to recycle. We start from sunlight and organic nutrients found in the earth, and decomposers help to convert dead or waste back to organic materials. They break it down to the smallest nutrients. Position of an organism in a food chain, food web, or ecological pyramid is called as a trophic level. Ecological pyramid could be something like this, where we have producers, maybe consumers, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and each level is a trophic level. Even in the food chain, each level is a trophic level. Moving on. Now, what are a group of organisms of one species living in the same area at the same time? Okay, for example, if we have an area and there are so many ants in that area, that is called a population, because same area and also same species, all the ants, so we can say the population of ants. Now, if there is also populations of different species in an ecosystem. So we have one ecosystem and there's ants. Let's say there are also some worms, and there are also some birds. Okay, birds, different species. We call this a community. A community has different species, but in one ecosystem. Next, a unit containing the community of organisms and their environment interacting together. That is an ecosystem. It includes both the living and as well as the environment, the plants, the worms, the birds, the trees, all of that. It's interacting with each other, and they're all living coexisting together. That's an ecosystem. Next, blank is a resource which is produced as it's removed from the environment, so it does not run out. That is a sustainable resource. For example, wind or sun. Doesn't matter how much sunlight you take, how much wind energy you take, or any other such kind of resource. No matter how much you take, it doesn't run out, because there is going to be an equal amount that's also coming in, that's also being produced. That is a sustainable resource. On the other hand, a non-sustainable resource is, for example, coal or petroleum. We keep taking it out to produce it again. It's going to take thousands of years, so there's a high chance that it will run out. Okay, our last definition is about biotechnology, genetic modification. What is changing the genetic material of an organism by removing, changing, or inserting individual genes? That is going to be genetic modification. One recent example is, we can say, direwolf. Direwolf was extinct. What could happen is that they would they have the DNA of a direwolf, and they could extract it from fossils or whatever. They extracted some particular, these are all the genes, so they extracted and sequence from the DNA. Okay, then they found out its closest living creature, for example, the gray wolf. And they used some gene editing techniques, and they would incorporate specific genes of the direwolf into the gray wolf, like this. So they modified the genome of gray wolf and incorporated the genes of direwolf. They would apply some techniques to create that and to express these traits in a living creature. That is genetic modification. One example of genetic modification.